At siguro mas maganda mag-launch kayo ng contest. Mahilig din lang ang Pilipino sa contest. So, ibig sabihin, ito yung target mo, ito yung performance mo. Pagka, yun ang bigyan natin ng parangal taon-taon. Para yung lahat ng mga high-performing regions and high-performing LGUs will be rewarded and recognized. Hindi, ang mahalaga rito, talagang yung contest itself, kailangan pinakita natin yung contest at saka talagang maganda yung premyo para at the end of the day, they will be recognized. Pero ang maliwanag ko rito, by region, maliwanag yung target. Ilan ang dapat ma-irrigate doon sa 1.2 million? Saan pupunta yung project na to? Kasi pinagkakagulan yan. Saan ba mapupunta yung project na yan? Marami rin nakikialam. But at the end of the day, it should be identified. So, siguro, yun ang kailangan natin, yung the entire roadmap para dito sa creation ng cooperative and of course, the new concept of contract farming, which is, nakita ko rito, napakagandang, very applicable. Yun lang, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, short interjection. Balikan ko lang yung statement kanina ni Administrator Gillian. Classmate, magandang umaga po. So, classmate kami sa Masteral. Anyway, I think wag na tayo lumayo. We learned from the Thailand model. So, they put so much money on irrigation. And number two, government of Thailand, during the time of Thaksin, binuhusan nila yung credit institutions nila, no? And they have been very successful. So ang problema sa atin, walang access to credit ang ating mga farmers. And since it is not even allowed to use land for collateral, mas lalong nahirapan yung mga farmers natin. And it's a fact that landowners do not necessarily till the land. Pinaparkilahan nila yon. So yung mga lessees ng lupa, they don't own land. So pero may solusyon yan eh. Hindi mo naman kailangan may collateral pag umutang ka sa bangko because this could be guaranteed by TRs or trust receipts. And that is the model in Thailand. Kasi ang TR, may wala apart from civil liability, may criminal liability pag hindi ka magbayad no? So all you need to do is educate the farmers, no? Na pag hindi ka magbayad, estafa ka, no? Kasi wala kang collateral So unless government would institutionalize access to credit, walang mangyari sa mga pobre nating mga farmers. So of course, government's initiative would include really, irrigating land. Yun nga sinabi ni Secretary Tio Laurel na nandito siya, that perhaps with the budget given by government to NIA, sa inyo po, Administrator, it would take 10 years for us to irrigate, the land that are eligible or qualified for irrigation. But siguro, makinig naman ng Presidente sa atin that if we could shorten that gestation, we could attain the ideal production or yield, which is 8 tons per hectare. Unless na, ma-attain natin yung 3 croppings, it would be very impossible for us to reach the ideal cost, production cost of 8 pesos per kilo. So, yun lang, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. May I recognize the former president?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congressman Biron mentioned one of the problems, which is that the farmers cannot, the beneficiaries of land reform cannot use their land for collateral. Since I was president, I was always working for this bill. In fact, when I was president, it already reached the bicameral conference committee, but my then Secretary of DAR, Rene Villa, who later became one of the highest 10, said that DAR is not pushing for it. So it kind of, there were other priorities in the legislative calendar, so it didn't, it stopped there. So when I became a congresswoman, I filed the bill again. The DAR Secretary de los Reyes again opposed it in the committee hearing, so it did not pass again. But you see, now many years after, it's still a problem. So since since all our inquiries are supposed to be inquiries in aid of legislation, I think this discussion again shows that that kind of legislation is really important. So can we request that when this committee gives its committee report, it will include a committee bill to reintroduce the legislation that we've been working for all these decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Siyempre,
I also want to thank you as chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means because of your respect for inquiries in aid of legislation. Because I remember that I filed a resolution to inquire on why the Clark exporters, the Clark allocators were not, by the IRR, had a removal of their incentives. After which you worked on the Create More, which is the legislation resulting from that inquiry. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your record of really bringing inquiries to legislation. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair,
ma'am. Yes,
very short
Congressman.
interjection in relation to the statement of former President. Hindi lang na magkaroon ng credit access, no, using the land as collateral, but we have to make sure that the credit facility is affordable. Kasi ang problema ngayon sa land bank, ang spread ng land bank is much higher than the spread of commercial banks. So instead na buhayin yung farmers, pinapatay ni land bank at ni DBP ang mga farmers kung meron man silang pagkakataon na to access credit. Pero sa ngayon, talagang problema natin because hindi siya na institutionalized despite credit being included in the charter of these government credit institutions. Talagang walang access, practically walang access. In Thailand, the cost of borrowing for farmers, exclusively for farmers, is less than 3%. USEC assets namamatay yung mga farmers natin because what? What is the borrowing rate of land bank right now? It's 8.9%. Whereas commercial and universal banks like BDO will only lend you at a rate of 5.5%. So anong tulong ng gobyerno sa mga farmers? Wala. Pinapatay ng land bank at DBP yung mga farmers natin and, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now may I recognize the Star of Congress, Estela Kimbo. May I recognize Asis? Okay lang sa'yo? Yes.
For the information of the chair and the
Yes,
members of
please.
the body, to be fair with Land Bank and APP, the new programs that they have with us, yun pong bago lang ito, Mr. Chair, no? Yun pong sa agripuhunan natin is 2% for DBP per annum po, at yun po namang sa Land Bank ay 4% po.
Ilan?
4% po.
Eligible borrowers.
Pwede pong basahin namin yung programa. Medyo
Okay,
mahaba
basa-
po siya, but...
Okay lang, basahin nyo na.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the agripuhunan, ito po yung pinaka parang proof of concept or pilot project ni Secretary with DBP, PCIC, NIA as IA's cooperatives po yung prioritize dito. It's a 50,000 hectare project worth 3 billion. They call it Agripuhunan at Pantawid Program. It's a 60,000 credit to beneficiaries that are RSBSA registered and members of DA accredited cooperative. So 60,000 per farmer per hectare. Portion of this is for inputs, 28,000, maximum of 28,000 pesos per hectare. Kasi katulad po ng sinabi kanina, na isang way